Fire Part 1. Born of Chaos, the hidden fire of Scorpio. In the dark womb of the universe, where stars are born not with light but with pressure, Scorpio emerges. Not with a cry, but with silence. Not with innocence, but with purpose. Among the 12 zodiac signs, Scorpio is the one that doesn't just survive chaos. It absorbs, understands, and transforms it. And in this transformation, Scorpio does not become a victim of fate. It becomes its own architect. But before we can understand why the Scorpio soul is so profoundly unshakable, we must first understand its relationship with chaos, not as something feared, but as something familiar. Cross swords the chaos bringers and the Scorpio soul. In every era, there are chaos bringers, those who burn what they cannot build. They are fueled not by passion but by envy. They despise structure because they have none. They attack strength because they have none. And they seek out the Scorpios of this world, not because of what Scorpio possesses, but because of what Scorpio is. Scorpio's aura unsettles them. Its silence feels like judgment. Its presence feels like resistance. Because Scorpio, more than any other sign, mirrors back the insecurity and emptiness of those who come to destroy. But Scorpio does not defend with fists. Scorpio defends with depth. You want to rattle me? A Scorpio once told me. You'll have to go deeper than I've already gone. New Moon forged in the flames, the making of the Scorpio armor. Where others build walls, Scorpio builds layers, like the ocean floor, hiding entire worlds beneath the surface. Imagine Mia, a Scorpio trauma counselor from Chicago. She told me about how she grew up in chaos, an alcoholic father, a mother battling depression, and a younger brother who needed her just to survive the day. But when she spoke of those years, there was no bitterness in her voice. There was power. I don't flinch when people scream, she said. I don't run from intensity. I was raised in it. That's the core of Scorpio's power. They are initiated by pain, not undone by it. While others are shocked by betrayal, Scorpio has already rehearsed that scene in their soul. While others need closure to move on, Scorpio knows how to close the door themselves, lock it, and keep walking alone if necessary. Brain psychological depth, Scorpio's first weapon. The average person understands emotion as reaction. Scorpio understands emotion as intel. They don't just feel things, they diagnose feelings. Theirs, yours, everyone's. That's why chaos bringers never stand a chance. Their motives are transparent to Scorpio. The passive-aggressive jabs, the fake smiles, the manipulation wrapped in concern, all exposed within seconds. Scorpio's emotional intelligence isn't about being sensitive. It's about being a surgeon of energy. It's why you'll rarely see a Scorpio explode in public. They're too busy watching, cataloging, and preparing a counterstrike so precise it doesn't even look like revenge. It looks like justice. Or worse, it looks like nothing. Silence. Withdrawal. Absence. And for the chaos bringer, that's the worst punishment of all. Candle the inner temple, where chaos dies. Most signs build peace by creating order outside. Scorpio builds peace by mastering the chaos inside. Think of chaos as a storm. Most people build a house and hope the roof holds. Scorpio? Scorpio becomes the mountain the storm can't move. They've wept on floors that no one saw. Screamed in pillows just to survive another day. Faced heartbreaks that would unmake others. And yet, Scorpio rises not harder, but deeper. This depth allows Scorpio to resist emotional bait. The chaos bringer wants a reaction. Scorpio gives stillness. The chaos bringer wants war. Scorpio offers observation. They know that the true war is not out there. It's within. And that's why Scorpio rarely loses. Lock strategic silence. When words are a trap, silence is not an absence of power. It is Scorpio's favorite tool. Where Aries charges, Leo roars, and Gemini debates, Scorpio waits. Watches. Calculates. This silence is not passive. It's loaded. Chaos bringers, who thrive on confrontation, often crumble under Scorpio's refusal to engage. They want the shouting match, the emotional outburst, the drama. But Scorpio remains quiet. In that silence, it speaks louder than words. It says, I see through you, and I choose not to let you in. DNA, the DNA of the survivor. Not all Scorpios have dramatic stories, but all Scorpios carry the memory of survival. It may be ancestral, spiritual, or karmic, but it's there, etched into the soul. That's why when chaos comes, Scorpio doesn't panic. They lean in. They go quiet. Yes, but inside, they are gathering power, recentering, grounding, because they know chaos isn't forever. It's just another phase. And Scorpio is a master of transformation. of what the chaos bringers don't understand. The chaos bringers think they can shake Scorpio. They think Scorpio's calm is weakness, that the absence of reaction is surrender, that silence means fear. What they don't see is the depth of the well. They don't know that beneath the surface, Scorpio is rebuilding a strategy, calling on every past wound, every hard-earned lesson, every dark night that led to this moment. They don't realize that Scorpio isn't just defending themselves. They're transmuting the attack into evolution. Personal reflection, the Scorpio in my life. Let me tell you about Daniel, my best friend and a Scorpio. He once told me, "People always think I'm intense, but I'm just honest. I can sit with pain longer than most people can sit with silence." When his marriage collapsed, he didn't spiral. He didn't lash out. He grieved in solitude for 6 months, then came back calmer, clearer, more focused. The pain didn't disappear. He just absorbed it, digested it, and turned it into wisdom. He didn't survive. He ascended. Sparkle's final words, Part 1. Scorpio is not the destroyer many fear. Scorpio is the one who remembers what must be destroyed so that something greater can rise. In the face of chaos, Scorpio does not resist, it transforms. In the presence of destruction, Scorpio does not tremble, it calculates. And when surrounded by darkness, Scorpio does not seek the light. It becomes the light. Loudspeaker call to action, YouTube style. If this first chapter into the soul of Scorpio stirred something in you, don't let it stop here. Like, subscribe, and share to follow the rest of this 8-part deep dive into Scorpio's divine resilience. In Part 2, we'll explore the strategic patience of Scorpio, the art of waiting, observing, and striking only when it's time. Stay with us. Chaos is just the beginning. Fire Part 2, the waiting game, Scorpio's strategic patience and timeless vision. In a world that worships speed, Scorpio walks slowly, not out of laziness, out of intention. Where others rush to react, Scorpio pauses. Where others demand answers, Scorpio lets the silence speak. Because Scorpio understands something the chaos bringers never will. Timing is everything. And if you don't control the timing, you don't control the outcome. Mantelpiece clock, the art of delay, Scorpio's first line of strategic defense. While most signs respond in real time, Scorpio lives on a different clock. Their timing is not based on emotion, but alignment. They don't act when provoked. They act when prepared. Think of time not as a ticking second hand, but as a chessboard. Scorpio is 10 moves ahead. You're playing now. They've already played tomorrow. Chaos bringers hate this. Their strategy relies on impulse, on triggering you, on dragging you into reaction. But Scorpio doesn't play that game. They smile, nod, wait, not because they're weak, because they're setting the trap. Chess pawn, a real example. When Scorpio waits, the world changes. Let's talk about a real-life Scorpio named Julian, CEO of a media firm in New York. He once discovered that a board member was leaking confidential information to a rival company. His team wanted to act immediately, file legal claims, fire the suspect, make a statement. But Julian said nothing. He invited the mole to dinner. Over 3 months, he slowly shifted project responsibilities, planted minor false trails, and mapped out every channel of betrayal. And then, he didn't fire him. He had the rival company investigated, exposed the entire plot in one press release, and bought their assets at auction 6 months later. That is Scorpio. Not loud, not fast, but inevitable. Brain why chaos bringers fail, they don't think long-term. Chaos bringers are addicted to now. They live off the thrill of the reaction. The chaos they cause is their fuel. But Scorpio? Scorpio burns differently. They don't burn out. They smolder. Quietly, powerfully, and with purpose. That's why you'll rarely see a Scorpio argue online, or explode in public, or chase after someone who ghosted them. Scorpio knows. Those who run are clearing the path. Let them go. Time will bring the truth. And Scorpio? Scorpio will still be standing. Candle patience is not passive, it's precision. Most people mistake Scorpio's stillness for inaction. But silence is not surrender. Stillness is not stagnation. Scorpio's patience is a kind of surgical awareness. While the chaos bringer rages, Scorpio is noting every detail of the lie in the tone, the motive behind the insult, the weakness behind the aggression. They don't respond because they're recording. They don't react because they're reloading. And when they finally move, it's final. DNA Scorpio's inner compass, navigating the flow of time. Scorpio doesn't just master time on the outside. They're tuned into it within. It's why they often say things like, "I don't know why, but I just feel like it's not time yet. Something's off. Let's wait. I'm not ready to speak. But when I do, you'll know. This intuitive clock isn't guesswork. It's a gift. And it's often why people call Scorpio mysterious. But it's not mystery, it's mastery. Scorpio knows that every cycle has a season, and they refuse to harvest fruit before it's ripe. That's why their moves look miraculous. They're not lucky. They're aligned. Counterclockwise arrows button when Scorpio turns the tables. Sometimes the best defense is letting the chaos bringer build their own trap. That's Scorpio's quiet genius. They let people dig holes, speak recklessly, overplay their hand. And when the time comes, Scorpio shows the receipts, the screenshots, the silence, and the world shifts. They don't need to fight. They only need to reveal. Milky Way is spiritual angle. Karma has no deadline. Scorpio understands karmic law better than most. Not because they preach it, but because they embody it. They've seen how time reveals all truths. They've watched fake friendships collapse, betrayers self-destruct, liars exposed without lifting a finger. So they don't rush to correct the world. They let time handle what ego wants to fix. This is why Scorpio seems so calm when things fall apart. Not because they don't care, but because they trust the cosmic process. Time is their ally. Chaos is just another phase. And justice always arrives eventually. Open book story. A Scorpio's patience saves everything. Let me tell you about Lena, a Scorpio writer in Seoul. Her husband cheated. Her family told her to leave immediately. Her friends offered to help move her out. But Lena waited. She didn't speak to him for weeks. Just watched, observed, collected her thoughts. And one night, calmly, she placed 2 journals on the table. One was hers. One was his. In his, she had written everything he had done, every message she'd found, every clue he thought he had hidden. In hers, she had written what she wanted to say, but never did. Pain, rage, but also clarity. She didn't scream. She simply asked, "Now that I've seen you, will you finally see me?" That conversation changed everything. Not just their marriage, but her. Because she didn't let chaos define her. She let time give her truth. Locked with Key Final Insight, Part 2. Scorpio does not win by force. Scorpio wins by waiting. Because what chaos destroys quickly, Scorpio builds eternally. What chaos bringers mock in silence, Scorpio watches in stillness. And what others forget in a week, Scorpio remembers for a lifetime. In a world built on distractions, Scorpio is the keeper of time. And time, unlike chaos, never forgets. Loudspeaker call to action, YouTube style. If this deeper dive into Scorpio's sacred timing resonated with you, subscribe to the Path to Buddhist Wisdom and don't miss Part 3, where we'll uncover Scorpio's secret strength, emotional alchemy, the power to transmute pain into purpose. The war isn't over. Scorpio's saga is just heating up. Fire Part 3, Emotional Alchemy, Turning Pain into Purpose. What do you do with pain? Most people run from it, deny it, drown it in noise. But Scorpio embraces it. For Scorpio, pain is not an intruder. It is a teacher, and not just any teacher, but a master. Because Scorpio was not born to escape darkness. Scorpio was born to transform it. This is emotional alchemy, the power to take what should break you and use it to rebuild yourself into someone unbreakable. And this power is what makes Scorpio terrifying to chaos bringers. Because every wound they try to inflict becomes Scorpio's next weapon of wisdom. Broken Heart, the first lesson of the alchemist. Pain is raw material. Scorpio's relationship with pain is ancient. It does not resist it. It studies it. It lets pain show its true form. Because Scorpio knows, pain is not the enemy. Denial is. When others say, "I'm fine," Scorpio says, "No, you're not." And that's okay. This is why Scorpio sits so easily in the company of those who suffer. They do not flinch at grief. They do not look away from trauma. They listen and they feel. Because once, they too were drowning. But they didn't die. They learned to breathe underwater. Test tube story. From grief to gold, the Scorpio widow. Let me tell you about Ella, a Scorpio artist from Barcelona. Her husband died in a motorcycle accident just 5 months after they married. She stopped painting, stopped eating, stopped speaking. Then one night, she took all his clothes and laid them out across her studio floor. For 6 hours, she sat in silence. Then she began tearing the fabrics into strips, into shapes, into symbols. Over the next 3 years, she built an art collection using only the remnants of his belongings. Each piece told a story of grief, of anger, of memory, of healing. And that collection? It now tours museums across Europe under the name. I lost him, but I found myself. That's Scorpio. They don't bury pain. They sculpt it. DNA. Why chaos bringers never understand this power. The chaos bringers' greatest delusion is this. They think pain is the end. They believe heartbreak ruins. That betrayal weakens. That rejection shatters. But Scorpio? Scorpio knows that every end is a beginning, and every wound is an instruction manual. So when chaos bringers attack, hoping to destroy Scorpio's spirit, they're always stunned when Scorpio returns, stronger, sharper, wiser. The pain they delivered didn't crush Scorpio. It clarified them. Counterclockwise arrows button Scorpio's emotional depth, a gift, not a curse. Many misunderstand Scorpio as too emotional or too intense. But what they see as intensity is actually depth. Scorpio doesn't just feel emotions, they explore them. Where others drown, Scorpio dives. This emotional depth is not weakness. It's resilience training. It's what allows Scorpio to process betrayal and still love again. To be stabbed in the back and still walk with an open heart. To face humiliation and still rise with dignity. Because Scorpio has cried the real tears and survived the real silence. Everything else is just noise. Fire the sacred rage, using anger for healing. Scorpio knows how to rage, but it is not blind fury. It is sacred rage. Rage that rebuilds boundaries. Rage that births clarity. Rage that says, never again. When Scorpio is betrayed, they do not just weep. They reconstruct their world. They redesign their energy. They don't retaliate with vengeance. They respond with rebirth. This is why chaos bringers fear the Scorpio they tried to break. Because Scorpio doesn't come back the same. They come back transformed. Person in lotus position, emotional mastery. Scorpio's quiet revolution. Imagine a person who can feel everything. Grief, joy, desire, fear, without being ruled by it. That's Scorpio at its highest frequency. They've trained themselves to observe emotions without being consumed. They don't suppress their feelings. They channel them. This is the secret to their power. While others lash out or shut down, Scorpio alchemizes feeling into fuel. The heartbreak becomes poetry. The loneliness becomes stillness. The disappointment becomes resolve. They don't numb. They refine. Dove a personal reflection. My Scorpio mentor. I once had a Scorpio professor named Marcus. He lost his son to cancer at age 9. When I asked him how he continued teaching after such a loss, he said, I couldn't stop the pain, but I could use it to make other people feel less alone. That was it. He didn't glorify grief. He harnessed it. Every lecture he gave felt like a prayer. Every silence in his voice, an entire sermon. That's Scorpio. They turn suffering into service. And that service changes everything. Crystal Ball Final Insight, Part 3. In a world that fears emotion, Scorpio wields it like a sacred sword. Pain does not define Scorpio. It refines them. Chaos does not unmake them. It awakens them. Scorpio does not seek to avoid suffering, but to transcend it. And in doing so, they become the very force that chaos can never break. Because their scars are not wounds. They are runic symbols of resurrection. Loudspeaker call to action, YouTube style. If you felt the truth of Scorpio's emotional alchemy in your bones, subscribe to the Path to Buddhist Wisdom and join us for Part 4, where we reveal Scorpio's greatest secret, their unshakable intuition, how they see through lies, illusions, and the masks of the world. Stay with us. Scorpio's fire still burns, deeper than ever. Fire Part 4, the psychic shield, how Scorpio sees what others cannot. Before a word is spoken, before a plan is revealed, before the betrayal is confessed, Scorpio already knows. This is the part of Scorpio that no one understands and many fear. The knowing. The eerie ability to sense what's beneath the surface, long before it's confirmed. This isn't fantasy. It's Scorpio's psychic shield, an invisible but powerful sense of spiritual radar, honed through pain, sharpened by observation, and trusted like oxygen. Crystal ball intuition is not a vibe. It's a weapon. To the chaos bringers, intuition is a joke. A good feeling at best. But to Scorpio, intuition is a survival system. It's what warns them when someone is lying, even before the words leave their mouth. It's what tells them a person's energy is off, no matter how charming they appear. It's what whispers, "Don't trust this." Not yet. And the most terrifying part? Scorpio listens. Always. DNA born with the code. Scorpio's built-in lie detector. Let me tell you about Devin, a Scorpio nurse in Boston. She once told me she felt a patient was about to crash even though his vitals were fine. Everyone brushed her off, but she insisted on staying by his side. 20 minutes later, he flatlined. But Devin was already prepared. Code Blue was called before the alarms went off. "It's not magic," she said. "It's presence." Most people scan the surface. "I feel the pattern behind the pattern." That's Scorpio. They don't just observe behavior. They decode intention. And that decoding becomes their defense. Scorpio's inner scanner, seeing behind the mask. In every room, Scorpio is scanning. Who's hiding sadness behind a smile? Who's hungry for attention? Who's speaking truth? And who's performing it? Who's loyal and who's just convenient? It's not judgment. It's instinct. Scorpio's eyes aren't just looking at you. They're looking through you. And this can make people deeply uncomfortable. Because if you're hiding something even from yourself, Scorpio will see it. Without trying. Without effort. Without fail. Smiling face with horns. Why chaos bringers hate this. The chaos bringers thrive in shadow. In manipulation. In confusion. They rely on secrets to stay in control. But Scorpio is the one sign that cannot be tricked by emotional fog. They're built for stormy waters. They're stormy waters. When a chaos bringer tries to seduce, confuse, or deceive, Scorpio leans back and watches. They don't accuse. They don't confront immediately. But they register everything. And once they're sure, they don't attack. They exit. Quietly. Completely. Finally. And that absence feels like exile. Milk away the sixth sense. Scorpios link to the unseen. Many Scorpios have uncanny connections to the spiritual world. They dream in premonitions. They feel a death in the family before the phone rings. They sense someone watching, then discover they were right. This isn't superstition. It's energetic attunement. Scorpio lives at the border between the seen and unseen. Their ruling planet, Pluto, governs the underworld, death, rebirth, shadow. So it's no surprise that Scorpio senses what others are too scared to acknowledge. In a room of smiles, Scorpio feels the tension. In a relationship, they know when the energy shifts long before the first argument. Their strength? They don't need proof. They only need confirmation. Open book story, the friend who vanished. I once had a Scorpio friend named Tara. One morning, she texted me. "Something's wrong with Aaron. He's hiding something." I laughed. Aaron was our mutual friend, funny, loyal, kind. But Tara had that look. The knowing. 3 weeks later, Aaron disappeared. Vanished from social media. Stopped returning calls. And when he finally resurfaced, he admitted he'd been dealing with addiction and had relapsed hard. Tara didn't scold him. She just said, "I saw your spirit dimming. I didn't need details. I just hoped you'd come back." That's Scorpio. They don't always need an explanation. They just need your truth. When Scorpio uses intuition to protect others. Scorpio's gift is not just for themselves. They use it to protect their tribe. They're the first to say, "I don't trust that person," and be right 6 months later. They sense when a loved one is spiraling, even if everything looks fine on the outside. They pull people out of toxic situations not with force, but with truth delivered at the right moment. It's part of why Scorpio often feels emotionally responsible for others. Their radar picks up signals others ignore. So they carry that knowing quietly. Sometimes painfully. Always faithfully. Person lotus position trusting their knowing. The final defense. What makes Scorpio's intuition so strong isn't just sensitivity, it's trust. They don't second-guess what their body knows. They've learned, often the hard way, that doubting their instincts leads to betrayal, danger, or loss. So now, when Scorpio senses a shift, they pivot. When they feel something is wrong, they pull back. When they detect energy misaligned, they don't argue. They exit. This isn't coldness. It's wisdom. Sparkle's final insight, part 4. The world is loud, but Scorpio listens to the whispers. They follow the quiet tremor of truth beneath the noise of the moment. And because of this, chaos can never sneak up on them. Scorpio is not fooled by masks. They recognize energy. They read silence. And they believe what their spirit tells them, even when the facts aren't there yet. Because in the end, what saves them is not proof. It's knowing. Loudspeaker call to action, YouTube style. If you've ever had a Scorpio see through your soul and love you anyway, honor the gift. Hit subscribe and join us in part 5, where we explore Scorpio's loyalty and boundaries, why their love is rare, but their wrath unforgettable. The deeper we go, the clearer it becomes. Scorpio doesn't just survive chaos. They predict it. Fire Part 5, Loyalty and Boundaries, the sacred circle of Scorpio. Scorpio doesn't love lightly. Scorpio doesn't trust easily. And Scorpio never forgets. Their loyalty is a sacred contract, silent, unspoken, and sealed in soul. But once broken, it's never repaired the same way again. To understand Scorpio's defense, you must understand their two most guarded forces. Backhand index pointing right, loyalty that cuts through lifetimes. Backhand index pointing right, and boundaries that no force on earth can cross. Shield loyalty is not a word. It's a vow. In a world where people throw loyalty around like a social currency, Scorpio treats it as a sacred offering. When a Scorpio chooses you, they choose all of you. Your shadows, your doubts, your wounds, your worst days. Their loyalty isn't passive. It's protective. It doesn't just say, "I'm here for you." It says, "I'll defend you in your absence. I'll bleed if needed. I'll remember your truth when you forget it." But that kind of love, it comes with weight. Because if loyalty is the sword they carry, betrayal is the one they bury you with. Open book story, the loyalty test. Mateo was a Scorpio chef I worked with in San Diego. He once found out that a close friend had been mocking his restaurant behind his back. When I asked him how he felt, he said, "He wasn't just mocking my work. He was mocking my name, my soul's offering." That night, Mateo didn't explode. He didn't argue. He simply deleted the contact, blocked him everywhere, and never said a word. Not because he was petty, but because in Scorpio's world, loyalty is all or nothing. And once that line is crossed, there's no map back. Prohibited boundaries like stone walls. Scorpio's boundaries aren't visible at first. They let people in slowly, through layers of observation, trust building, silence. But once you're in the fortress. And once you're out, the door is sealed. Scorpio may forgive, but they never forget. They don't need to scream or punish. They simply remove access. Their silence is the sentence. Their absence is the closure. And that is a boundary most people can't handle because they never saw it coming. Fire Scorpio's inner circle, rare and ruthless. Scorpio doesn't keep a crowd. They keep a core. This core is made of the few who've proven their loyalty through action, presence, and truth. It's a small, tight circle, and breaking into it takes time and consistency. But betray that trust? You're not just removed from their life. You're erased from their emotional memory. Because Scorpio doesn't punish to hurt. They distance to preserve peace. Smiling face with horns, why chaos bringers fear this. The chaos bringer thrives on emotional access. They poke, provoke, manipulate. They expect emotional responses. Drama, chasing, pleading. But Scorpio gives them nothing. Not anger, not closure, just a locked gate and eternal silence. And that is devastating. Because chaos bringers are not used to losing control. Scorpio doesn't just take back the key. They burn the door. Broken heart Scorpio love. Intense, but earned. When Scorpio loves, it's full body, full spirit, full risk. They don't say, "I love you" casually. They say it like a soul agreement. So when that bond is dishonored, the grief Scorpio feels isn't petty heartbreak. It's mourning. It's death. But after the funeral, they don't linger in the cemetery. They rise, alone, wiser, and colder. Not bitter, just clearer about who deserves access next time. DNA story, the mother and the line. Tamika, a Scorpio single mom from Atlanta, once told me a story about her sister who repeatedly borrowed money and spread lies about her behind her back. After years of forgiving, excusing, and hoping, Tamika made one final decision. She cut contact. She told me, "Blood isn't loyalty. Blood is biology. Loyalty is choice." Scorpio knows that not even family is exempt from betrayal. Their boundaries are not emotional reactions. They're sacred architecture, built from experience, pain, and healing. And once they draw the line, it's drawn in stone. Person in lotus position loyalty as Scorpio's self-defense. Scorpio's loyalty isn't just about protecting others. It's also how they protect themselves. When they give their loyalty, it's as if they're saying, "This is my energy. my time, my trust. You now hold something precious. And if that offering is misused, Scorpio doesn't just feel wounded. They feel exposed. So they tighten the gate. They retreat into solitude. They sharpen their senses. And next time, it's harder to get close. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. Sparkle's final insight, Part 5. Loyalty and boundaries are Scorpio's sword and shield. They don't use them lightly. They use them surgically. Because to Scorpio, love without loyalty is manipulation. And intimacy without respect is intrusion. They may walk through fire for you, but betray them once, and they'll walk away from the fire forever. Scorpio forgives in spirit, but in the realm of trust, there are no second chances. Loudspeaker call to action, YouTube style. If you've ever seen the fierce loyalty of a Scorpio, honor it. If you've ever crossed it, respect the silence. Subscribe now and follow us into Part 6, where we explore the final metamorphosis of Scorpio, from Scorpion to Phoenix. A journey through destruction, purification, and divine rebirth. The ashes aren't the end. For Scorpio, they are just the beginning. Fire Part 6, from Scorpion to Phoenix, the divine rebirth of Scorpio. Most zodiac signs evolve, but Scorpio transforms. Not with age, with fire. Where others seek comfort, Scorpio seeks truth. Where others escape endings, Scorpio walks into them. And from that ending, Scorpio emerges new, radiant, and completely unrecognizable. This is the sacred metamorphosis of Scorpio. From the earthbound scorpion, to the all-seeing eagle, to the eternal phoenix. Scorpion the Scorpion, survival mode. Scorpio's journey begins as the scorpion, defensive, instinctive, raw. The scorpion trusts no one. It stings when threatened. It hides in the shadows. It lives low to the ground, always anticipating danger. This phase often defines Scorpio's youth or early emotional life. They learn betrayal early. They feel abandonment sharply, and they protect themselves with silence, sarcasm, or solitude. But over time, Scorpio realizes, living in fear is not living. Reacting is not rising. And so they look up. Eagle the eagle, gaining perspective. The eagle stage of Scorpio is a game changer. No longer crawling in reaction, Scorpio begins to soar in reflection. They detach emotionally, not as avoidance, but as clarity. They see patterns from above. They understand manipulation without engaging. They anticipate betrayal, not with bitterness, but with acceptance. At this level, Scorpio becomes highly intuitive, insightful, and psychologically masterful. But still, something is missing. Because understanding others isn't the same as healing yourself. And so, Scorpio flies into the flame. Fire the phoenix. Death, rebirth, and ascension. The phoenix doesn't just rise. It burns. It surrenders everything. The identity that no longer fits. The relationships that drained. The beliefs that kept them small. This death is not external. It is internal disintegration. Scorpio lets go of the anger, the need to control, the need to sting back. And in that surrender, something sacred is born. The phoenix is Scorpio's final form. And it doesn't seek revenge. It seeks liberation. Open book story, the Phoenix Moment. Let me tell you about Yasmin, a Scorpio yoga instructor from Kuala Lumpur. She was cheated on, publicly humiliated. Friends turned away. Her reputation tarnished. For 6 months, she disappeared. And then, one day, she walked into a conference room and announced she'd started a healing center for women going through emotional trauma. She wasn't angry. She wasn't vindictive. She had burned the old identity. And from the ashes, she brought purpose. That's the phoenix. Not reborn out of luck. Reborn by choice. Counterclockwise arrows button, the pain of rebirth. What people don't understand is that the phoenix transformation isn't pretty. It hurts. It means grieving the old version of yourself. It means standing in the fire while everything you thought you were melts away. But Scorpio embraces this pain because they know, if it doesn't kill me, it will remake me. And they don't just return stronger. They return smoother, softer, sharper, all at once. A paradox of power, an embodiment of grace. DNA, the alchemy of flame. Scorpio's journey to the phoenix is a spiritual path of alchemy. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about release. The chaos bringers who once had control, they no longer matter. The wounds that once haunted, they now illuminate. And Scorpio's soul, having burned off the illusions, now walks with clarity. No need to prove anything. No need to defend anything. Because when you've survived your own destruction, nothing outside of you can destroy you again. Candle Phoenix Wisdom. What Scorpio teaches the world. Through this rebirth, Scorpio becomes a healer, a guide, a mystic. They help others face their own endings. They hold space for pain that others run from. They remind the world, your worst day is not the end. It is your initiation. The Phoenix version of Scorpio is no longer triggered by chaos. They are transcendent of it. They live by a different code. Surrender to the process. Burn what no longer serves. Rise again and again. Sparkle's final insight, Part 6. Scorpio's journey is not linear. It is cyclical. They are reborn over and over, each time more aligned, more aware, more untouchable. The Chaos Bringers may keep attacking, but Scorpio no longer fights. They fly, because when the Scorpion dies, the Phoenix awakens. And once awakened, it never fears fire again. Loudspeaker call to action, YouTube style. If you feel the fire of Scorpio rising within you, it's time to embrace your own rebirth. Like, comment, and subscribe to the Path to Buddhist Wisdom and join us in Part 7, where we reveal Scorpio's hidden compassion, why behind every fierce warrior is a heart that's loved more deeply than anyone ever knew. The fire may burn, but the soul always survives. Fire Part 7, The Hidden Compassion, Scorpio's secret softness beneath the armor. When people think of Scorpio, they think dangerous, mysterious, intense, untouchable. But few understand the real reason Scorpio builds such impenetrable walls. It's not because they feel nothing. It's because they feel everything. And in the deepest chambers of that silence, beneath the fire and fury, lies Scorpio's most guarded truth. A heart that loves so fiercely, it terrifies them. Drop of blood, the vulnerability Scorpio doesn't show. Scorpio doesn't fall in love. They descend into it, fully, spiritually, all-consuming. But the world has not been kind to such hearts. So Scorpio learns to shield it. They hide their compassion behind sarcasm, their tenderness behind control, their care behind withdrawal. Because in the past, when they gave it freely, they were torn apart. So now, they love with discernment. But don't mistake that discernment for absence. The love is still there. It's just armored. Open book story, The Stranger and the Scorpio. Eva, a Scorpio schoolteacher from Montreal, once found out one of her students was being abused at home. There was no proof, just behavior, quiet signals, bruises explained away by falling down the stairs. She followed her intuition, took extra care with the student, left snacks in her locker, stayed late after class, built trust, waited. 3 months later, the girl broke down and revealed everything. When the case was closed, Eva was offered an award. She declined. "I didn't do it to be recognized," she said. "I did it because she reminded me of me." That's Scorpio. They don't always show their heart, but they will quietly save yours. Broken heart, the depth of their empathy. Scorpio's empathy is rarely loud. It doesn't come in inspirational quotes or public declarations. It comes in actions you don't even notice. The message they send when you're unusually quiet. The silence they give you when you need space. The presence they offer in your ugliest moment. The memory they keep of things you thought they forgot. Scorpio doesn't need applause. They need authenticity. Because when they love you, it's not a performance. It's a soul contract. Milky Way, the mirror of pain. Scorpio understands your darkness because they've sat with their own. They've felt unworthy. They've been abandoned. They've lost people they weren't ready to lose. So when they see someone else breaking, they don't turn away. They lean in quietly, gently, fiercely. Not because they have the answer, but because they remember what it's like to bleed without being seen. Scorpio won't fix you, but they will sit in the fire with you. And that's what healing feels like. Smiling face with horns, why Chaos Bringers can't corrupt this. Chaos Bringers mistake kindness for weakness. They try to manipulate Scorpio's compassion, exploit their loyalty, twist their care into obligation. But Scorpio is not naive. They feel your intent. And the moment they sense falsehood, they pull away, not angrily, but completely. Because Scorpio's compassion is not unconditional. It is sacred, and only the worthy may receive it. Person Lotus position softness as strength. In Scorpio, softness isn't surrender. It's strategy. They know when to be gentle, when to hold space, when to listen instead of advise. Their stillness is medicine. Their silence is prayer. They've been hardened by life, but not closed. Because deep down, they still believe that love, real love, can transform anything, even pain, even chaos, even themselves. Repeat button when Scorpio opens up. If a Scorpio opens up to you, truly consider it a cosmic privilege. You are being invited into a heart that has been shattered and rebuilt 1,000 times. They won't show you the cracks, but if they trust you enough, they'll show you the light that shines through them. And once you're in that circle of trust, their love becomes protective like a shield, deep like an ocean, pure like fire. But break that trust? They won't hate you. They'll outgrow you. Of personal note, the Scorpio who held me. I'll never forget Maya, a Scorpio I met during my worst heartbreak. I didn't ask her for help. I didn't even tell her I was hurting, but she saw it. She didn't give advice. She just showed up. One evening, she brought me tea and said, "I don't need to know the story. I just want you to feel safe again." I never forgot that. Because it wasn't grand. It wasn't loud. It was Scorpio, quiet, precise, and life-saving. Sparkle's Final Insight, Part 7. Behind the intensity. Behind the stare. Behind the stillness. There is a Scorpio heart that loves so deeply, it's had to become indestructible, not because it doesn't want to love, but because it refuses to break again without meaning. Scorpio's compassion is not for the world. It's for the deserving. And if you were ever lucky enough to receive it, protect it. Because when Scorpio loves you from the soul, it's the purest thing you'll ever know. If you've ever been saved by the quiet strength of a Scorpio, honor it. Subscribe now and prepare for Part 8, the grand finale, where we uncover Scorpio's legacy, transcendence, spiritual mastery, and their role as karmic transformers in the lives of others. Because Scorpio doesn't just survive chaos. They teach the world how to rise from it. Fire Part 8, the legacy of Scorpio, karma, transcendence, and the mastery of chaos. What is Scorpio's ultimate purpose? Why are they forged in fire, raised in silence, and reborn from ash? Because Scorpio doesn't just survive life. Scorpio is here to transform it. Not only their own, but yours, ours, everyone's. Scorpio is the karmic recalibrator of the zodiac, a cosmic initiator, a soul alchemist, and their legacy isn't written in words. It's etched into energetic memory. Cyclone Scorpio as the karmic mirror. When Scorpio enters your life, it's not accidental. It's a soul appointment. They're not just lovers, friends, or coworkers. They're catalysts. They appear when you're ready to confront something deeper. A truth you've avoided. A pattern you've repeated. A lie you've told yourself for too long. And once they arrive, nothing remains hidden. Crystal Ball the Shadow Worker. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, planet of death, rebirth, transformation. That's why they don't operate on surface level. They speak in silence. They cut through illusion. They hold a mirror to your inner world and say, "Look, face it, now grow." This isn't cruelty. It's liberation. Because Scorpio's gift is helping others become who they truly are, even if it means being hated in the process. Open book story. The friend who ended my illusions. There was a Scorpio named Jace who once told me, bluntly, "You're not tired. You're scared of living your truth." It hurt. I didn't speak to him for weeks. But deep down, I knew he was right. That single sentence broke me and rebuilt me. I left a job I hated, ended a relationship I was clinging to, and started the life I'd always postponed. He didn't offer comfort. He offered clarity. And that changed everything. Balance scale Scorpio's role in the collective. Scorpio exists to shift paradigms. They disrupt toxic systems, challenge emotional dishonesty, reveal betrayal, then burn it away. It's why they're found in roles like therapists, healers, investigators, crisis responders, spiritual guides, artists who rip the soul open. They're not here to decorate life. They're here to purify it. Person Lotus position transcendence over chaos. At their highest frequency, Scorpio becomes a channel for higher wisdom, for healing, for rebirth. They no longer react to chaos. They hold space for it. Their calm becomes a sanctuary for others. They become the still point in a spinning world. The fire no longer consumes them. It follows them. DNA, the initiation of Scorpio. Scorpio's life is filled with initiations. The death of innocence. The betrayal of trust. The surrender of ego. The burning of identity. The awakening of truth. Each trial doesn't harden them. It hollows them, creating space for something greater. A vessel. A guide. A phoenix. Repeat button. The cycle never ends. The Scorpio journey is not linear. It is a spiral. Descent, disintegration, awakening, resurrection. And through every spiral, Scorpio gains deeper insight, finer discernment, greater compassion, fiercer boundaries, softer strength, until one day they no longer fear destruction because they have become indestructible. Milky Way Scorpio and the sacred feminine. Scorpio's energy, regardless of gender, is deeply tied to the sacred feminine. Receptive, wise, cyclical, unapologetically intuitive. They are the guardians of womb wisdom, shadow healing, and psychic truth. In a world obsessed with doing, Scorpio teaches us to feel, surrender, and trust. And in that surrender, we find transformation. Dizzy Final Insight Part 8. Scorpio's legacy isn't dominance. It's depth. Not power for its own sake, but power in service of truth. Scorpio teaches us to embrace our shadows, to alchemize our pain, to trust our intuition, to rise after being burned, to live with soul, not surface. Because chaos doesn't destroy Scorpio. Chaos is Scorpio's canvas. And their art is rebirth. Loudspeaker final call to action, YouTube style. If you've walked through this 8-part journey with us, you now carry the essence of Scorpio within you. The world needs your fire, your truth, your wisdom. So like, share, and subscribe to the Path to Buddhist Wisdom, not just for more zodiac insight, but for the soul transformation your journey deserves. Scorpio has spoken. Now it's your turn to rise.